Welcome back to the second semester of Wolverine Woman. It is an exciting day on set. We have Kaitlin Urka. She was a Michigan graduate. She now works for NBC Sports, and she was the general manager of WOLV-TV back when she was here. So we decided to bring her on set, ask her a few questions about what it's like to work in sports, what it's like to work in sports media, and what it's like to be a woman in the field. So for now, we'll open up the floor to some questions.
What's the craziest thing you've ever done with the camera to get a shot?
Craziest thing I've ever done. I would say I've done some really crazy things, but most recently I was shooting scenics for a horse race, and I went paragliding with a camera off the coast of California so that I could get coastline scenics for our show. And that was pretty crazy. I will admit that I might not have been thinking clearly when I said I would do that. Because next thing I know, I was hanging above the cliffs of California with a camera in my hand going, okie dokie. But the shots were awesome, and they made air, and yay.
It's those shots like those that, have allowed you probably to win Emmys with your work. Can you go into that?
I can go into that. I have been fortunate enough to win 4 Emmys. But every Emmy that I've gotten is obviously is a team effort. And I'm blessed to work with some of the most amazing people in television day in and day out. And all of my Emmys have come from work on the Olympic Games. I'll be heading to my 5th Olympic Games coming up in South Korea. But the coolest thing about them is they bring together truly the best in the business. So you're working with the best photographers, the best audio engineers, the best, talent, the best producers, directors. Everybody is the top of their craft. And so every day they come into work and they bring an enthusiasm that is infectious, which you have to have because you're working horribly long days for a month straight. And so, the awards are great, and it's obviously lovely to have, but at the end of the day, it's more of an acknowledgement that we survived an Olympic Games. And you did so, again, with literally the best people in their positions working alongside with you. So I clearly did not win it just on my own merit. It was definitely a full team effort for all of those wins. But I will say this, if you would have told me 10 years ago, like, hey, you're gonna win Emmys someday, I would have said, yeah, that's really funny. Like, when you say win, is it gonna be like one of those plastic things that you got at a thrift shop and they're gonna write Emmy on it and give it to you at like a joke party or something? It really doesn't seem possible, but I will say that it's something you don't ever take for granted, because I've also worked with people who've been in the business for decades and have never been nominated. So even though I have 4, every one seems as exciting as my first, and I'm thrilled to have gotten the opportunity to even be nominated, because there are times where I've been nominated and haven't won, so I know what that feels like too.
What's your favorite story that you've ever covered?
Ooh, oh gosh, you guys are really putting me on the spot here. Favorite story that I've ever covered? Well, the cool thing is when I first started, I did features and profiles for the Olympics. So I got to meet a lot of amazing athletes with truly inspiring, remarkable stories. But I would say there's one, he's a Canadian freestyle mogul skier, and his sole purpose of doing it was because his brother can't. He has a disability and is physically unable to participate. And so this guy basically went out there every day and did it for someone else. And he won the first ever gold medal on home soil at a Canadian Olympic Games. And it was like chills, remarkable. So being able to work on that was pretty incredible. And I would say maybe tied with that is I got to work on a documentary for the Sochi Olympics on the Lokomotiv hockey team, which was a Russian hockey team that boarded a plane and it crashed on the runway. And I think all but 3 people died. And there were several American hockey folks on that flight as well. And it was a tragic story, but while I was doing research on it, I happened to discover that right before he boarded that plane, one of the players had donated anonymously 10,000 Russian rubles to this girl that was battling cancer and needed a surgery. And she was able to get that life-saving surgery because of his donation. And I found her. I tracked her down on the internet by some miracle using every Google conversion software I could find. We found her, we brought her back. She got to meet his parents, who are still living in Yaroslav, and we got to have this amazing like television reunion for them to show that his life like wasn't in vain. That right before he died, he made this grand gesture. And so I think that to me was really cool because it brought people together and it meant something way more than just sport. And that, to me, that's the best part of my job, is like telling these stories that go beyond the playing surface.
What's it like being a woman in a field that's predominantly men?
Yeah. Oh, wow. You know, I look at it as a great opportunity because I'm always challenging myself. I wish it weren't the case, but being a woman in a male-dominated field is hard. You're always going to have people say that you don't belong. That, okay, you know, how can you be a hockey producer? You didn't play hockey. How can you, you know, be a football producer? You didn't play football. Well, no, but I know more about football than most of the guys that I'm friends with. I sit down and watch a game and can diagnose a play, and they can't. But they, and some of them might have even played. They might have even played Pee Wee football. So you're constantly challenging yourself to show that you belong. And that can be tough. It's tough to go into a job every day and feel like you have something to prove. But at the same time, it makes you better because I can't rest on my laurels. I can't say, I'm just going to be really good at my job and let it speak for itself. I'm constantly looking for ways to prove myself, to be better, to move the sport and the television broadcast forward, and to say, listen, like, yeah, I'm a woman, but I belong. And, you know, the bad news is sometimes you're in situations that are less than ideal. You can be in some uncomfortable environments where I've had, you know, male athletes and things maybe say some things to me in locker rooms that aren't great. But that's unfortunately, in this day and age, is still part of the job. But I think it's coming a long way. Like, I've seen a lot of changes throughout the years. These environments are getting a lot better. You know, luckily these pro athletes have grown up in a generation and in a culture that is more conducive to having women cover them and be around them, and they're more respectful of that. But again, it's never going to be perfect. And I think that that is also good for me because it gives me something to shoot for. Like, I want to make it a better environment so that someday, you know, another 10 years from now, if I come back here and talk to another group of women, I can say, you know what, it's going to be awesome when you go in that room. And everyone's going to look at you the same as they look at the male reporter next to you. And, you know, no one's going to think differently. Right now, we're not there yet. But hopefully someday we will be.
What was your favorite sports opportunity that you got to take a part of at Michigan?
At Michigan? I got to cover Michigan's first trip to the NCAA basketball tournament in 13 years, which was pretty awesome. I was there in Chrysler Arena for the announcement when they, like, CBS put on that they made the tournament, and I mean, that place exploded. That was a really cool memory for me. I was in the big house in, I want to say 2006, when Michigan beat Penn State on a last-second throw. It was Chad Henne to Mario Manningham with 1 second left on the clock to win the game. Penn State had been undefeated up to that point. That was a great moment. I also got to be on the field for several upsets against Michigan State. I was at the little brother game, if you will. That was a pretty cool moment. So I was pretty spoiled when I was here in the sense that I got to witness some pretty epic Michigan victories. I can say this now, sorry teachers, but I may or may not have skipped a couple classes so that I could go to basketball games, one of which was an upset against Michigan State that I still think about and was so excited. I was like, sorry that I missed your class, but I was rushing the court with all the other students freaking out because we beat Tom Izzo. So it was worth it. I still got an A, by the way. Still got an A.
That's what counts.
Yes. Well, I just want to know what inspires you guys to be in sports television or to want to have a job in sports.
Me personally, I'm a nursing major, so not really anything to do with sports, but I've always been in an athletic family. My dad ran cross country in college. He went to Cornell. He was on the track team. My sister played lacrosse at Marquette. So I've always been around sports. And I think just being in an environment where I can kind of put my nursing on the back burner and do something that's for me, really, and being around a group of women that is really inspiring, that really helps me personally.
As viewers, what are your favorite parts of the Olympics? What sticks with you when you turn on the broadcast? What's your takeaways? Like, do you have memories of watching the games, or something that sticks out in your brain, or something that you most look forward to when you watch coverage of an Olympic Games?
I love the opening ceremony. I think it's so cool to see like all the countries like file in and stuff. I think it's just so awesome because like I'm not there, but it's like everyone else is there.
I like seeing athletes I can kind of relate to on some level, like young gymnasts or swimmers or whatever. I'm like, oh, that girl's like younger than me, and I think that's like really cool to see people that are younger than me doing crazy things.
Yeah, for me, I was a competitive swimmer for 12 years, and swimming like is never on television at any point in time except for the Olympics. So it's nice to see like my personal sport represented at, even though it's just like once every 4 years, and the occasional like random meet will be on TV sometimes. Like I'll have people text me, did you know that there was a meet on TV today? Like for no reason, because it's not represented all that much on TV. So just the fact that it's shown like touches me.
Yeah, I like hearing about the athletes like backstories because they usually make me cry. No, I get really emotional when you see an athlete kind of overcome something, and at one point they're just a little kid with a dream, and then here they are.
Well, be prepared. I've screened a couple of those pieces for this games. I wept openly in a production meeting recently with like 75 of our other NBC employees. They like showed it for us, and I was okay, this is so great. It's gonna be great. So yes, we weep openly as well when we're making them. Like I sit in edit rooms all the time and crying, and I've seen it 50 times. So yeah, it's be prepared. Get your Kleenexes out for this Olympics, folks. It's gonna be a good one.
Even on Netflix, what NBC Sports has up on Netflix right now. Have you seen that? They have, I think right now there's 2 episodes up about like a preview to Pyeongchag.
Oh.
And they do like little clips about the backstories of the athletes. And then in the first episode, there's just one section where it's just all these people winning gold medals, and then they're showing their parents.
Oh my gosh, the parents
It's the parents. They get me every time.
So we have this.
Parents make
we
me
have
cry.
this thing we call it Titans, and it's because we call it Titans because it was the theme to remember the Titans that we would play off the air when our credits roll at the end of the Olympic Games, and it's a compilation of moments, throughout the Olympics, and when they screen it for us, like before it goes to air that night, it's just a bunch of sobbing, like literally sobbing people. Like we just sit there and there'll be 50 of us in a room watching, and it'll just be like snotty, messy, like so emotional, because you have these moments like the man and the wife like meeting in the stands, and the mom like crying for her son, and like all of that stuff. And when you haven't slept in 3 days, which is what most of us are at that point at the end of the Olympics, like that's why we do what we do, is because those are the moments that matter and that people remember. And it makes me excited to hear you guys say that. Makes all that sleep deprivation worth it.
Thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome.
You're
Thank
a
you for
star.
having me.
I feel like we all learned a lot, and we're so excited for Pyeongchang right now.
Yeah.
So.
Well, good. Everybody watch. Support my 401k.